What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you're too good at it? Moving through unreasonably tight and cluttered spaces. Normally, my friends and I used to hang out at an extremely cluttered warehouse that belonged to a hoarder friend. It was full to the point where moving at all without getting stuck on something or causing a garbage avalanche was difficult, and there I was just gliding through hills of hoarded garbage like some kind of ghost. They told me it was creepy. My grandpa, I swear he was magic, could always find a front row parking spot for anywhere we went. It didn't matter if people were parking out in the grass. If he drove up to the front, there was always a spot. If there wasn't, then immediately someone would pull out of their spot to leave. Always. Sadly, he did not pass down this magic to anyone. This matches well with my grandma, who is absolutely 100% a fly. It doesn't matter what kind of plant it is or what weather we have. Her plants are always perfect. They bloom early and keep blooming way longer than they should. We had an ice storm this last winter that took out so many trees. Every tree around my grandma's house was damaged and had broken limbs. Not hers. Her trees were fine. What? Question mark. Spatial awareness. I can look at something and tell you whether or not it will fit onto a wall, into a box or car, through a hallway or stairwell, etc. I was at a shipping store a few months ago and the guy was in line behind me trying to figure out which size box to get for the box he was trying to fit into it. I pointed at a specific size and said, "That one. But only if you put your box in this side up." It slid in perfectly and he gave me the weirdest look. Somehow though, I always seem to bump into the corners of tables. I would say that I do this, and the key is to be an active listener. Most people really like talking even if they think they don't. So once you can find something that they like talking about, you're golden. You can use context clues to help with finding the topic. They have a t-shirt with a graphic. Ask about it. They are drinking something. Ask what it is and what their favorite drink is. Just be actively listening and they are going to feel comfortable and leave the interaction liking you because you are giving genuine interest when a lot of people are only waiting for their own chance to speak. This will get buried, but for me it was reading. I was really fast with good comprehension starting at a very young age, and so I got a lot about that. I was actually understanding what I read, and every teacher would say I rushed through material. It still pisses me off that I had to constantly defend myself about it, although my parents would always back me up, so that was good. They'd lived with the evidence long enough to know I was telling the truth. I learned a trick in the oil field that allows me to that without sucking gas, or other fluids, into my mouth. It's so simple. Stick a hose into the container, then hold your hand against the hose and pull it out and release. Simple vacuum release and you've got flow. I do it all the time at work, especially when we change out radiators and have to put the coolant back into the trucks. I put our coolant pan on the forks of our forklift and lift it up to a reasonable height and then get it flowing. In my line of work, sales, there is a method called mirroring where you try to mimic the customer's tone and energy to be more relatable. I've spent many years trying to read people and am introverted as it gets, so I like to think I do this very well, with my fellow men being the easiest to read. Well, my employer noticed this and refers to it as an advanced sales tactic. They pulled me into a Zoom with other employees who suck at closing sales and had me try to teach it to them. Reading body language and being particularly sensitive to people. I have a friend who's so good at it he knows what you're going to do before it ever even crosses your mind. First time he pulled the whammy on me was when I was just about to look for the remote and he handed it to me. No looking around or anything. I just shifted slightly about to get up and he goes, "Here's the remote." Seemed pretty cool at the time. But then a few weeks later we were eating out together and I couldn't decide on whether I should get dish A or dish B. He told me to get dish B even though I'd never even voiced which dishes I was deciding over. I swear he's almost physic. Taking off a woman's bra. I'm a man, one-handed. Years ago in high school, college I read that you can remove a brow one-handed by putting your thumb and finger on either side of the clasp and making a snapping motion. When I had the opportunity to try it out with my girlfriend, it actually worked. But then anytime I did it with someone new, I'd get a raised eyebrow, and I'd done that a few times, huh? Look. I can almost always tell which way is north, which means I can get to anywhere I've been once by just navigating where I think it should be. My mind has a pretty decent map. I can also count both fairly fast and pretty accurately, so maybe the measurements of travel X amount and west naturally occurs on some subconscious level. This doesn't help me too much because I'm horrible with names, so oh, you mean that cool bar on Broadway means literally nothing to me until we get there, and I remember I hate this place. I have an uncannily strong sense of smell, which means I can go to the bathroom in school, work, and know who was there based on the products used when people freshen up. Have also walked down the main street in Ginza and smelled someone I'd met 6 months ago before I turned around and saw them walking by behind me. I can also predict if it's going to snow based on how the air smells. Twice I said in the middle of June, weird, it smells like snow, and twice there was a freak snowstorm overnight. All the people who laughed at me were giving me weird stares when they realized everything was covered in a layer of fresh snow. I guess I seem like some kind of voodoo witch. I can also tell how many hours it's been since your last meal or who you met before me just based on scent, which is why it is nigh impossible to cheat on me. Excel. I found that by taking over reporting from others because it took them so much time, I'd automate it to pull from the database where the previous owner was spending 2 hours a day copy/paste hundreds of cells. A couple hours work once and I hit a button, done. I'd used release right away, even with the script to open, refresh, save, and email it. This caused people to not trust the numbers, so now I still pull in the data but hold off on releasing it for a bit, even a bit late on occasion. TBH, anything with being sneaky, so you know how strict parents often raise secretly uninhibited sneaky kids. Well, guess what I am in front of my dad. Until I was 16, I was calm, collected, and submissive. In reality, that was just because I didn't let him see who I really was until certain lines were crossed and I got rebellious, as a boomer might say. I won't break down my whole deal to say why I know these things. Also, I'm not claiming to be a super spy or anything. These are just skills that meet the above criteria and that I've picked up and improved over the years. These are all things that seem normal if you just know how to do them. But I've had it happen more than once where I've implemented one and the people with me have had questions. Things like 1. Picking locks. Sure, like 1 in 3 people can pick a simple or cheap lock. But when you know how to open an electric lock or magnetic security pad door, maybe use the old sound pressure method. You know, the one, that thing people do to code locks where they put their ear against it to open a more complicated locks, and have it actually work. People give you a look. 2. Moving quietly, reducing visibility. I've met a lot of people who think they can be physically stealthy. It's funny because, yeah, maybe your footsteps are quiet, but I can hear you breathing, you fucking pug. Or maybe you're good at hide and sneak, but I dare you to cross a room. This is what an overly strict father really teaches you. Learn where the shadows are, including your own, and put your hand over your nose, lined up with the bridge's slope, and take long, slow, soft, deep breaths. There's so much more to this one. I've seen a lot of people say remembering schedules on here, but there's so much more to it. I'd more say 3. Learning someone's patterns, not just their schedules, but the things that might make them deviate from it. This is actually a good life skill to have and really makes you a better friend. Knowing when something is different about your friend's behavior can help you help them if something less than good is affecting their lives. But as soon as you start seeing other people's lives through the little windows they give you and putting the pieces together accurately, then you need to watch yourself. Last is my favorite. 4. Double talk. I suppose because of my father I get really bad anxiety from lying, so I don't, period, not even little things. I just skirt the truth. I either give an adjacent answer in an indirect way that changes the initial question, or implies an answer where none is to be had, or change the subject slowly. I'll answer with the question, tell a long-winded story as an answer, over-clarify, etc. Sure, lots of people do it, but you have no idea how satisfying it is to get out of trouble, not because you lied and are thus accountable, but because you slipped away with no trouble. Makes you feel smart. Smile. Granted, that still makes me feel super guilty no matter how minor the issue. TL, doctor, if you had a strict parent or parents, you probably know the little secrets to living with them. Stay quiet. Stay out of sight. Don't let them see the mistakes. Not saying that's healthy, but you know what, maybe that's the parents' fault. Customer service worker here. I remember certain regulars' orders to the point that if I saw them pull up, I'd have their order in and ready for them at the window, which is ironic because my memory regarding my childhood or what happened in the last couple weeks is absolute garbage. Lol. When I was really young, I really struggled with typing because of my short fingers, but now I can type really fast, think 80 to 100 words a minute fast, and I've gotten so many comments on it. My only fear is that I will develop arthritis really bad in my hands because of this and will no longer be able to type as fast as I do now. I went to a restaurant once while on vacation in Panama City Beach. Awesome little Italian place. I ordered a seafood dish with the pink sauce. It was incredibly good. So when we returned to the same restaurant 4 years later, I already knew what I wanted. The waiter came over and I recognized him from the first time we were there. He knew my order. He said the dish name to me and said, with pink sauce. Right? I have no idea how he could have remembered. I didn't say it out loud before he came over. If he really remembered me, that's insane. Working hard. I build roads for a living from beginning to end. Some days are tough when it's hot and we're slip paving 2,000 plus yards of concrete. It can be fairly physical and I'm 43. I go to work every day with one underlying goal: to outwork everyone else. I do a lot of the thinking as well, but I try not to let those 18 to 20 somethings outwork me physically. If they do happen to outwork me, I gain respect for them. Being a leader, I also try to be upbeat and energetic as well, so I think they probably assume I'm on something. Lol. If it's an everyday skill, but gardening. I've had every old fart on my block walk by my house and admire my flowers, then proceed to tell me they will call the police if they see me growing pot. Old people are bold enough, like, sir, I'm a psychopath. Please don't piss me off or you'll become fertilizer for my flowers. Ha 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 dot 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 ha ha dot 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 ha. I did have one old guy who said if I did grow pot he wouldn't call the cops, only if I shared some with him. Good deal, Jerry, but for the last time, I do not grow pot. My yard is a butterfly garden for fuck's sake, and growing flowers is my therapy. Please get off my lawn, or become a part of it. Being a good judge of character. I've had to bite my tongue so many times because I think someone isn't a good person or has issues that will end up hurting my friend or something, and said friend just doesn't see it and goes on anyways. It's happened dozens of times. The person in question almost always ends up doing exactly what I expected or feared. Now, I had a friend a long time ago who legit asked me one day if I could read minds. Wasn't sure how to respond to that one. I'm a nurse and I set up medications weekly for my residents that the CNA/PCAs then hand out at the appropriate times. Sometimes I have residents with difficulty swallowing large pills, so I crush them in this handle pill crusher thing and in a special bag. But occasionally not all of the pills get crushed. One day I was at my desk and Apka says, "Hey, one of these pills in the packet isn't crushed," so as I stand up to get out the machine for it, She takes out her license and a lighter and finishes crushing the other pill in the pack before putting it in some pudding and leaving. Lying on the spot. A while ago while hanging out with friends I was wearing a shirt with palm trees on it, and for some reason one of them randomly decided to put me on the spot and ask me to tell the group that story about the palm tree, so I just made up a whole story about how I climbed the palm tree when I was a kid, on holiday, that I wasn't supposed to climb because it was next to a road and didn't understand a kid who was yelling at me to climb down. I assumed because I didn't speak the language, and started throwing things at me to get me down. There were other small details I threw in, but I was able to tell it convincingly enough that everyone believed me. The guy who asked me to tell the story just looked at me dumbfounded when I'd finished and asked if it was really true. So I admitted I'd made the entire thing up. Literally, nothing like that had ever happened to me, and everyone was really confused but weirdly impressed. And then a little suspicious about what I could have lied to them about. For the record, I rarely lie to people, but I discovered I'm good at it if I ever want to lol. Spotting cops and people who are up to something. I can look at a street and in 5 seconds tell you about the 2 undercover guys watching the dealer on the corner and tell you where his runner is. I can see the guys who probably have outstanding warrants avoiding the uniforms, the hooker talking to the guy parked halfway up the street and the other guy cruising looking for his dealer. It all comes together in a snapshot. Most people can get about half of it as they observe for a while. I've learned not to talk about it. People who don't know me think I've been part of that game. Being unbothered by blood and guts. I'm a veterinarian. I've spent days up to my elbows in all manner of bodies and parts and fluids. I can watch surgery or necropsy videos over lunch. I did an eye surgery on Tuesday and somebody had to catch the new kid. The big ones aren't allowed to get faint. It's very inconvenient. Related aside, when the nice young lady at the bank says, "Oh my God, there's blood on your shirt," assuring her that it isn't your own in fact offers no reassurance. This is literally how the series Psych starts. The main character, Sean Spencer, is too good at being observant, and because he kept sending tips to the local police, they called him in for questioning because they thought he might be involved in all those crimes, so he has to pretend to be a psychic. Edit. Now 2 of my most upvoted comments are psych-related, which is great because it's my favorite show, but don't waste money on me guys. Breaking into someone's car. A few years ago I was at a new job and a coworker locked her keys in her car. I got the door open in under a minute. The security guard watched me and had some concerns with the speed at which I opened that car without damaging it. Truth of the matter is that the guard wasn't paying attention completely to what I was doing. My first car was a 2-door sports car and I learned about a design flaw with those cars when my demos locked my keys in the ignition. She had a similar car and her keys in the ignition, so I took advantage of that design flaw to get her door open without damage to the car. We play this drinking game where you take the paper bag from the store, put it on the floor standing up, and you have to bend down on one foot and grab it with your teeth. Each round, you trim a few centimeters off the top and keep lowering the bag until there's a winner. One of my very unathletic friends at the time would easily win every round. It would just be him and he was flexible enough to get the bag only 6 inches off the ground. People were super impressed and I joked it's all that practice from sucking your own dick, and the look he gave me, combined with the awkward laugh, made me think I might have been closer to the truth than I would have hoped. Remembering things for other people. I pick up random things in conversations, not necessarily in a conversation with me. I like to listen. I'll wish you good luck on that special thing tomorrow. I'll tell you happy birthday. I'll tell you not to forget something. It has saved myself and people around me from getting into shitty situations. Imagine a guy at work who tells you not to forget your wife's birthday next week. Yay, I'm that guy. ADD has taught me to remember the things I pay attention to.